Team Fortress 2 is a pyramid scheme. What does that mean? Short answer is it realistically doesn't change much, and it's just a crackpot conspiracy theory I've been rolling around in my head. The long answer is it's complicated, but let me explain. Alright, so to satisfy one of my douchebag friends who would refuse to submit to my clearly superior logic, let's start by defining what a pyramid scheme is. I'll be using the Wikipedia article on the topic in combination with a .gov page from the state of New York for the reason that they were the two of the earliest things to pop up when I googled the topic, and I'm a lazy cretin. According to both of these sites, a pyramid scheme is an illegal business practice in which a company focuses its attention on getting more people involved in the scheme for the sake of increasing the number of people likely to spend money on the scheme with the promise of returns. There may be a product involved, but realistically, if the company has a product, the product only exists to collect money and to get more people involved in the scheme. And already, this definition wouldn't exactly fit with the argument I'm trying to make, which is that Team Fortress 2 is a multi-leveled marketing amalgamation that has accidentally designed itself to be the perfect passive moneymaker by tricking people into wasting their money. After all, when you buy something off the in-game store, you know what you're getting, right? Well, kind of. For taunts and hats, you know exactly what you're getting, and those are legitimate products. But when it comes to unboxing, there is an aspect of gambling to it, with the resounding cultural agreement being that if you buy keys to unlock crates with, you're doing it because you expect the possibility of a greater return in the form of unboxing an unusual or something that might be worth more than what you paid to get it. So, in this sense, TF2 has a community solely dedicated to keeping itself alive while increasing the player count, and it sports an economy largely dedicated to convincing people to go gambling with real money. People purchase keys and crates because they think they could get something back, which is no different than the pyramid scheme's promise of potential returns if you invest solid cash in the scheme. In this sense, if you are a part of the TF2 community, you're contributing to expanding the TF2 community by its very nature. And if you buy keys, you are investing in the scheme with the hopes of immediate profit returns. The only flaw in the definition is that you aren't directly paid to bring in new investors to the scheme, as the Wikipedia and .gov definitions suggest, but I have a counterpoint for that too. If you're familiar with the Professor Specs, a sunglasses item for all classes, you'll know how people get it. By getting other new players to commend them for helping them out in-game. More often than not, friends will just reward this free item to each other as a part of the process of getting into TF2, and in an economy based on fashion, there is therefore an inherent monetary value to getting new players invested in the scheme. Alright, now that I hope I've justified the theory to your satisfaction, let's start talking about the levels of the scheme. The reason a pyramid scheme is called a pyramid scheme is because the number of investors expands downward in a pyramidic shape. At the top, you have the original investors who reap huge rewards, then below them are some intermediate investors who get some rewards for joining the scheme early. Then below them are a lot of people who wasted some money and have gotten a bit of it back, and then below them are the majority of people who've seen little to no returns at all. For the sake of the theory, I've come up with 6 layers on the pyramid of TF2 scamdom. Valve, YouTubers and streamers, traders, community developers, average paid players, and average new players. Let's go through them. At the top level of the scheme, you have Valve. It was, of course, never their intent to create a pyramid scheme, and they developed a fabulous game that would stand the test of time after an eventual transition from a paid model to a free-to-play model. Eventually, they got bored with giving TF2 constant attention, and they started releasing cosmetics heavily drawn from the community to ensure a flow of constant content with minimal effort. By this point, the community under them had grown so large that it spanned multiple platforms. Obviously, the main community would always be centered in TF2 servers, Steam groups, but massive secondary groups started to branch out on YouTube, Discord, Reddit, Twitch, and all other forms of social media platforms. Seeing the opportunity to move on to greater projects in Valve, most of the employees working on TF2 walked away, leaving a skeleton crew to occasionally add minor patches and fixes, fully knowing that people would continue to buy crates for new cosmetics whenever they were released. Fun fact about Valve's business model for those of you who don't know. Unlike in traditional businesses where bosses give orders and move people to projects based on what needs to get done, in Valve, people can work on whatever projects they want to, and as long as their peers rank them as having been productive, they have effective freedom of movement. What this means is that the employees at Valve simply don't want to keep working on TF2 at large, and Valve has no plans to make them do so. This isn't a malicious thing, it's just how it is. But the fact remains they've acquired a massive following under them while doing basically nothing but maintaining the scheme through regular crate drops, qualifying the first level of the pyramid as the absentee moneymakers typical of pyramid schemes. At the second level down in the pyramid, you have anyone in the community who makes significant cash from promoting the game. Of course, I am on this level. The business model of the TF2-focused YouTuber or streamer is intrinsically intertwined with promoting the game, as how much money we make is intrinsically intertwined with how many people are interested in the game we promote. In this manner, the second layer of the pyramid is by far the most typical of a pyramid scheme, in that we make money by driving other people's interest in the scheme. Granted, some of the videos are good and some of the streamers are entertaining, and there's not really any scam here, but the fact remains that we're taking time and attention towards the scheme and converting it to cash, reinforcing the scheme with every success. It was realizing this fact that first prompted my interest in this completely insane conspiracy theory, but I think I've made decent sense with it so far. At the third level down in the pyramid, you have item traders, people who specifically train themselves to be able to manipulate and play the market economy within the scheme. These guys are honest risk takers that can actually turn a notable profit off of consistently trading up items in value. I'm gonna be honest, I know very little of the TF2 trading scene and have almost exclusively had negative experiences with it, so I'm not the best guy to testify on how exactly they manage it. But even if most of the money here is exclusively made on TF2 backpack increases, they are still profiting without notable losses most of the time, while also perpetuating a unique trading subculture and encouraging others to get involved in it. Really not much different than encouraging people to play the stock market, except with the added appeal of, prestige within the trading subculture and within the greater TF2 culture as a whole. At the fourth level down in the pyramid, you have community developers. This is a rather unique tier, as it's composed of the actual lifeblood of TF2. These are the map makers, the model designers, the artists, the animators, the unpaid YouTubers and streamers, the Steam group leaders, the comp teams, and just about everything in between. The thing these guys all have in common, unlike the previous three levels, is that they don't get reliable income from TF2. Valve takes their hefty chunk of cash from the Manco store sales, big YouTubers and streamers get paid on those other platforms they use, and traders can still get regular cash proportional to their skill and activity within the trading scene. These fourth level content creators rely exclusively on donations most of the time, and often put in far more time and effort than the payout justifies. If a map maker spends 3 months making a masterpiece and receives over $100 in donations from it, it would be considered a massive success, while the previous three tiers wouldn't even scoff at the number. This is a sad reality because I attribute the survival of TF2 to this class of unpaid creatives, but it's just how it is. And of course, all the mentioned subcategories on this level have their own sub-communities that all encourage other TF2 players to get involved in minor content creation, specifically to increase the prestige and income of those guys who are already involved. At the fifth level down on the pyramid, you have the average paid TF2 players. These are the guys who will buy a few keys whenever a new crate drops. They're the type that might donate to various YouTubers. They're the guys with a few unusuals and a handful of strangers, and most importantly, they're the guys who have been actively trying to get their friends to play TF2 more. More than likely, you're one of these guys watching this video, as you probably have been off and on watching TF2 videos for the last half decade or so since you got into the game. You probably have a decent job or are still in high school or college, and this is just where you come to relax, and every now and then you'll splurge a little and maybe buy some items just to see what happens. Not to say you're a sucker or anything, but when you buy that new crate with the idea that you might get an unusual, that is the pyramid scheme functioning perfectly, and the vast majority of you come out of that interaction at a financial loss. But the stories of those who don't come out at a loss are enough to motivate you to try, and so the dice continue to be thrown. And finally, we reach the bottom of the pyramid. At the sixth level down on the pyramid are average new players. I suspect this group is actually smaller than the fifth level down for the reason that TF2 has lost most of its momentum in the wake of constant inactivity, but this group is the single most vulnerable to purchases for one simple reason. Making even one purchase will give them the rights of a pay-to-play, the ability to speak in in-game text chat, since Valve removed that a while ago, and a place among the more honored fifth level. While the fifth level players spend more over a long span of time, it's much more likely that a sixth level player will enter the fifth level by spending money for what is realistically nothing. And with that, I believe I've made my point. Team Fortress 2, as a game kept alive exclusively by its community, perpetuating itself and then perpetuating the economy reliant on the absentee investors at Valve, has become a pyramid scheme by the nature of bringing in new players to fund its own existence. I hope this crackpot conspiracy theory has been at least a little interesting, and please, please, please email Valve repeatedly to tell them to update their bloody game. It is my greatest hope that this video will someday be considered outdated. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day. #SaveTF2